When you don't take time to look at it through other people's eyes. Take some time and reflect on what you believe in your soul. Cause that is the key to life. You gotta let the negativity go.
Welcome to What the Fox podcast with your two hosts, Lindsey Fox and Amber Ross. We are sponsored by therapyappointment.com. Therapy Appointment is the longest running practice management system out there for clinicians who are in search of something that is just simply better than simple practice. So with that being said, we want to also remind you that I have a lovely coaching business called conscioushealers.com. And we highly recommend that any women out there who are looking to just reset, recharge, and reclaim your life and experience joy again, come join us on our retreat in Sedona, Arizona. It's going to be amazing. And we only have 2 spots left, so jump on the bandwagon. All right, Missy Mooks, today we are diving into the lovely role of self-efficacy. And
we are about to get schooled, and I'm here for it.
A lot of people really have never heard that word, so I think it's kind of cool for us to talk about it, normalize it, and tell people what it's all about.
And how you can make it work for you.
That's right, because just like with all things in life, everything is contingent on what you think and believe, and therefore you either sink or swim.
So wait a minute. We all know that words have power. Now you're telling me thoughts have power too?
No, well, thoughts have all the power, actually.
All of them. Yeah, I would agree.
I'm very biased as well because I do operate more from a cognitive behavioral lens.
Yeah.
Not everyone would agree with me, but self-efficacy is really our belief in our ability to do shit. How's that?
I like it. It's simple. It's perfect.
All right.
Say it one more time for the people in the back. Did you say it's too simple for you? I love you.
It's too simple for my brain, so we're going to make it a little bit more complex and dive in.
Okay, I'm here for it. Let's go.
All right. So self-efficacy is a theory of motivation that was designed by Albert Bandura. And Albert Bandura is someone who is most well known for his social cognition theory, which is all about the role of observational learning, reciprocal determinism, and our social experience. So it is basically saying how our social and cognition, meaning thoughts, how all of these things integrate. So our environment and our thoughts integrate to produce a way of functioning. Right? Simple enough?
Sort of. Right? I mean, it was simple at start, but then as you're talking, all I kept thinking about was Thomas the Train. And you'll appreciate that if you've read the Thomas the Train book, because it's all about him saying, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, to get over the mountain, right?
It's true. This is actually why I love us working together, because you do simplify things. And sometimes, while I do believe that growth is simplified, I feel like we got to get into the nitty gritty complex shit in order to untangle all the things and simplify it. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of what we're diving into, you're absolutely correct. Thomas the Train.
Thomas the Train. That's it, people.
Yep. So self-efficacy beliefs are the self-perceptions that individuals hold about their capabilities. And so this means their perceived competence and the behavioral actions or cognitive skills necessary for performance of any given skill or ability. Okay, so gonna say that one more time. It is our perceived competence. So our perception of what we can do and how we can show up in the world, whether it be about a specific skill or ability. So our belief in our ability to work out, our belief in our ability to lose weight, our belief in our ability to have healthy communication skills with people, our belief in our ability to make an A on a test, all that stuff. So self-efficacy is our perceived competence in self and our ability to show up and do things in the world, right? So with that being said, these beliefs are really the foundation for human motivation. It is the foundation of our well-being and our personal accomplishment and how we show up in the world, because what we believe is what we actually end up performing.
Yeah.
Right. So when you talk about, I think I can,
Yeah, I 100% believe that. And immediately what I thought about in my head was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I decided to make a jump out of sales, which my entire background was in sales. And I woke up and decided, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something different. And the first opportunity to present itself from the moment I said I want to do something else to myself was a project management role. And initially I looked at that and I was like, I don't know anything about project management. I could never. That's so far outside of the realm of my skill set. You know, I said all of the things.
Right.
And then I went to sleep that night and I was like, wait a minute. Your whole life is project management.
I was gonna say, what?
You live project management, right? It seems
Mhm.
strange. But looking at it on paper, when I read the outlines, the requirements for the job, all of
Right.
the things, I was like, that doesn't sound like me. So naturally, of course, when I believed that it didn't sound like me, the first thing I did was apply for the job. Because why not?
Yeah.
And I had the interview, and as I was talking to the gentleman, quite frankly, one of my favorite managers of all time, one of the most influential managers I've ever worked with, we had a wonderful discussion, and what he helped me see is all the ways that my natural inclinations lent themselves to project management, and all of the ways that what I had learned as a sales representative covering these major corporations lent me to project management. So
Yes.
while I went, like, I had the whole gamut of emotions of there's no way I can do that, to maybe I can, let's have a discussion, to holy crap, yes, this is the job for me. I want in. Like, my name is on that job. And
Yes.
it was
So
just the shift was amazing.
And so you had all the skills all along. It was a matter of having someone support you with reframing them to get where you
Mhm.
needed to go with your sense of belief. And that kind of leads me into wanting to dive into how do our self-efficacy beliefs even come to originate in the first place. And there's
Yeah.
actually 4 key things that lead into these underlying foundational beliefs. So, and I think they're important to discuss because whether you are thinking about the workplace, whether you are thinking about parenthood, romantic relationships,
Mhm.
whatever it is, these key tenets absolutely steer the ship on where you show up in the world and how you perform. So, number 1 is our past experiences. Our past experiences are huge with driving our judgment and our beliefs because we are basing things off of what we already know. We're saying, okay, I've already done this thing, so I should expect XYZ. And
Yeah.
so it leads to certain outcome expectations, is the word we use for that.
Like every
But
time someone asks me to participate in an organized sport and I say, oh, no, friend.
yeah, I prefer to be the last one selected so I can wiggle my way out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm all set with that. And the second thing is vicarious experience. So this is really whenever role modeling comes in. Vicarious experience is like when a child sees how their parents function and communicate, and then a child learns through vicarious experience, oh, this is what love is supposed to look like. This is what a healthy relationship is supposed to look like. Even if it is healthy or unhealthy, the vicarious learning is telling you this is what relationship or love is supposed to look like.
Right.
So there, thus our judgments develop. So our belief in self and maybe our beliefs of what marriage is supposed to look like can originate. And obviously I'm just like throwing out different examples here. This can be applied to so many different things. And number 3 is social persuasion. And so that's kind of what I was hearing you talk about with regard to your boss in this situation.
Yeah.
Because, and also like in the context of relationships, I also pair it up with like love languages. So like words of affirmation.
Yep.
So that social persuasion are just like, is getting the words of encouragement from someone who is saying like, you've got this, you can do this, go ahead and, you know, do field day, you're going to kill it, you're going to do awesome on that track today or whatever it is. Because that enhances your sense of belief of like, all right, my mom believes I can do this, so therefore I can do this. I think I can. I think I can.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
if we roll it back to our professions for a minute, this is why coaching is so valuable and so successful and such a key pivotal area for people who want to level up, because you've got a non-biased third party that you
Mhm.
can borrow belief from, right? Someone who can help you with the reframe, someone who can help you with not necessarily words of affirmation from like a place of love and adoration, but from a place of belief and knowledge and
Absolutely.
empowerment.
100%. I mean, because that's it, that is what we're here for, is to really root you on and to instill that sense of motivation and belief where for a lot of people, it just is a mindset change. That's
Yep.
really what it is. So whether you want to call yourself in that case, I identify as an empowerment coach, you identify as a health esteem coach, whether people call themselves a mindset coach, it's all the
Yep.
same kind of thing where we're all working together collectively to support individuals with shifting their mindset to get where they need to go, where they want to be. So that's that, to achieve mastery, to increase their self efficacy. That's what it's all about. So the fourth thing that kind of rules the judgment or the sense of belief in that foundation, actually, believe it or not, is our physiological feedback. And so a lot of people kind of dismiss this, but I think it's important to do a call out about, because it ties back to our nervous system.
Okay.
So what is our nervous system used to? Are you used to calm, steady mode of functioning or not? And under what conditions?
Yep. Okay. I
So
got you.
right. So think about public speaking. That is the number one most feared thing in all of society. Across the board, people have a tremendous fear of public speaking. So when you think about public speaking and you're about to go out on that stage and talk to a group of people and you feel your nerves, the
Mm-hmm.
way that you are perceiving and interpreting those nerves, those physiological symptoms of maybe like sweaty palms, racing heart, hot
Mm-hmm.
flashes or something, are you interpreting those physiological cues to mean you're super excited and can't wait and you're pumped to go out on stage? Or are you interpreting it to say, like, oh my
I'm gonna
gosh,
throw
I
up.
am so nervous. I'm going to throw up. I'm going to fail. I'm going to be
Yep.
horrible. I'm going to trip. All of these things where you're kind of pushing in your head these thoughts of being evaluated and judged.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, the way that you perform, your outcome expectation is going to align with what you are actually communicating to yourself beforehand. And so that's kind of where I go back to think of, like, when I remember a coach, like whenever I say coach, I mean like a PE, a physical education
Yeah.
teacher or something, back in like grade school used to say, can't never could, Fox, can't never could.
Can't never could. Yep.
Right, can't never could.
Tell
Like,
me
because
you grew up in the South without telling me you grew up in the South.
yup, yeah, I tried to say this to some of my therapy clients in Massachusetts, and none of them have heard that phrase. I was like, really?
Shocking.
No, really, I didn't know that was a Southern thing. No, like, I really, I seriously didn't. So I said to one of my clients, I was like, they said can't, never could. They were like, what? I was like, oh, okay, we need to take a step back.
Like,
But
Lindsey, your Southern is showing.
yeah, definitely did not know that was a Southern thing whatsoever.
That's funny.
hmm But yeah, it's true. I mean, if you say I can't, then you never could, and you probably won't, and you can't. I mean, can't, never
Right.
could. So a lot of it is all about, with regard to self-efficacy, is like, okay, how can you improve it? Because most people are
Mm-hmm.
trying to enhance their sense of self-efficacy. Whereas, just a quickie note is that some people can have too high of a self-efficacy, which also carries a lot of disadvantages as well. Side note.
That might be a wonderful follow-up to this episode. So we're gonna table it. We're gonna set it to the side.
It's okay.
But that's an interesting theory, and I'm making a note right now about it.
Okay. Yeah, we can come back to it. It's pretty quick and simple.
What I love, or what really stuck out to me, I'm not going to say that I love it, but it sounds like the biggest challenges and biggest opportunities are both perception and expectation when it comes to self-efficacy, right? So your
Yeah.
perception of what's happening or
Yeah.
what could happen or what will happen, and your expectation of what's
Mhm.
going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I think it's funny because so much in this podcast we've talked about how expectations are premeditated resentments.
They are, and also we need them in life sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what it comes down to is, are your expectations in line with the actual perception, or like the actual form of reality? So
Mm,
when we talk about how self-efficacy is the perceived competence in a person's
mhm.
abilities, your expectations are kind of driving front seat in the car there. So if your outcome expectations, meaning you are expecting, give me a scenario, like, I don't know, a relationship thing or something, like, no, I don't know, like you're having a
See, this
tough
is when
talk.
we
You're
freeze. Like, what is
okay. No,
happening here?
no, I mean, I'm saying, like, think about
No.
it. Like, say you're having a relationship argument or something with maybe you and a friend or a spouse or whatever are about to, they want to hash out something, and you're like, all right, I have a perception of how this conversation should go. The
Ooh,
outcome
yeah.
expectation of this is, all right, I'm going to say how I feel. They're going to be receptive. We are going to get on the same page. All will be well with the world.
Or
Right.
the way my brain went, I'm going to say how I feel. I'm going to be completely misunderstood. We're going to get nowhere. And then we're just going to walk away and try again later.
Oh man, you are more of a classic case of what reality is about.
I mean,
But I'm
listen.
saying, but in the pretty form of just saying,
Yes.
hey, expectations and outcome
Yes.
expectations is you expect things to work out, and you have a certain outline in your mind of how it's supposed to go.
Yes.
Then you develop these outcome expectations of, okay, everything's going to go well because someone's going to hear what I have to say, and not only they're going to hear me, but they're actually going to comprehend what I'm going to say.
Ooh, yes.
And therefore I'm going to get my needs met, and then we are going to be just dandy in this relationship dispute because we're going to work everything out. And so you paint this picture of how the outcome expectation is, and then when reality hits, and maybe the person was listening to respond instead of listening to comprehend. And then instead you get like some bickering back and forth, and it's not so pretty, and it's not aligning with your outcome expectations. So when the actual when the actual outcomes do not line up with our outcome expectations, we then lose or decrease our sense of self-efficacy, of, wow, maybe I didn't have great communication skills in the way that I
Yeah.
thought, because I thought I was going to do a good job and the outcome did not align with what I had expected.
Well, and I'd
And
like to just take a collective pause to say that
Mm,
communication is one of the most challenging aspects of being a human. Like,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure we can all agree that, like, we're all kind of working through our own shit and trying to look at the world in a way that it makes sense based on our previous interactions, which comes back to the self-efficacy, right?
Hmm.
But then, like, I bring my bag of shit and you bring your bag of shit, and then we're just like
Yeah.
wading through it together. Okay. I know that's a terrible
Yes.
visual, but
No,
sometimes
it's
conversations
true.
can feel like you are just mucking through it.
It's so true. And actually that's, I mean, so that the person I had mentioned at the beginning, Albert Bandura, the social cognition theory, how it's
Yeah.
based on a tenet of it is on reciprocal determinism. And reciprocal determinism is, I know that sounds like really fancy, but it's just saying like the reciprocal nature of people influencing each other. So how one action generates a reaction and an interaction across people, time, space, and environments, that sort of thing. So how we all have a play in our environments.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's why communication is so hard, because we all have a different interpretation. So if we're not clarifying what we're meaning behind our words,
Mm-hmm.
and we're assuming that someone means X and you really mean Y, you're going to have these discrepancies show up. Um, but in the context of self-efficacy as a whole, I would say um, it really ties into personal mastery in terms of, so I don't want to get too caught up in like the other person and the other person's role in it, but it's again about your perceived competence and your abilities and
Yeah.
how you're able to do things. So one of the most Googled things that you see online is like how to build self-confidence. And truly it comes down, like, self-confidence and self-efficacy, they are very much interwoven, because if you have low self efficacy, you're likely going to have low self confidence,
Yeah.
because you're not going to have a belief in your competence and your ability to do whatever the thing is. And so, generally speaking, the way to improve it is to look at small ways for you to make those incremental steps in the right directions, which ties back into an episode from the beginning of the year about SMART goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Bite-sized chunks. so that you get that little hit of, hey, I did this thing, I bet I can do that
Yeah,
next thing, and just building
exactly.
self-confidence over time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's another piece of the coaching model that I know that we both embrace, which is
Mhm.
really achieving more of a hierarchy of like, what is the person's barrier and how
Mhm.
can we slowly chip away in a smart form? So
Mhm.
just, and for those of y'all who are not familiar with SMART goals, just like specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time limited, or we've kind of debated the different R's and
Yeah.
T's and all that stuff. But yeah, so just making these little things very achievable so that little by little you can gradually build your sense of self efficacy, which in turn builds your sense of self confidence to achieve said goal or whatever it is. And so you can see how these things kind of go hand in hand with one another.
Absolutely. And I think part of what I focus on in my coaching business is dialing in or dialing out outcome based goals, because we
Mm,
rarely actually have control over the outcome that's going to happen. What we have control over is actions we put in, it's our determination, it's our dedication, it's the steps, the things that are within our control physically of what I do
yep,
with my time, with my mind, with my body, etc. And I think that's part of self-efficacy, because if you are constantly setting goals that are outside of your control and you're setting
mhm,
them as these big outcome-based goals, you're setting yourself up to not reach them or to not hit them and to backtrack on your self-confidence and self-efficacy.
totally. And that also ties into the role of resiliency. Same kind of thing. When
Mm-hmm.
you have a high sense of self-efficacy, you're more likely than not going to have a higher sense of resiliency at play.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't, win that game of the night or whatever it is, or make the straight A's on the report card this time, you're still able to say, you know what, though, like I did give it my best and I did all the things based off of the origin of beliefs, right? Of like, I got the positive praise. I did the vicarious experience of studying and
Yeah.
doing what I was told to do, and I did my all. And this is just one example of 10 where it just didn't happen to line up with my outcome
Yeah.
expectations, and so therefore I'll be okay and I'll get up and I'll try again. Um,
Absolutely.
and so that's where you can kind of see where that lower self efficacy can also generate that downward spiral of like learned helplessness as well,
Yeah,
where
because
you,
I tried and it didn't work. I did, the
yeah.
things and it didn't work. Like I knew it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to, and just building, like suddenly you've created your destiny in your
You
own
have, yep.
mind.
And that's just it, is that our thoughts really are reality. Our
Yeah.
thoughts generate our reality. And we as a society don't really think that we take that in too much. We don't take that into consideration too much. How much power our thoughts actually have in our lived experience and how your life plays out in day-to-day functioning.
Well, we think about it, but we think about it in the woo-woo mindset of like, oh yeah, there goes those silly people again thinking their thoughts have power, when in reality, like, you're the silly one. Of course your thoughts have power. Of course the words that you
Mhm.
say, the actions you take, all of that is so interwoven and interconnected that you would be silly not to believe in it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you can see though, especially when that in that downward spiral of learned helplessness, that's when you get into more of the more the more you go in that downward spiral, the more you're hedging toward probably a clinical diagnosis of something like major depression disorder
Yeah.
or some type of phobia or whatever the case. And so, this granted, I want to say like with what we're talking about today, this is in no way meant to be any type of a form of counseling or advice on how to handle your mental health or anything, but these are
Right.
just general discussions on the role of motivation and how motivation can be generated, how
Hmm.
motivation can be maintained, the behaviors that are needed to maintain that motivation, and for you to be able to move forward with some level of success or mastery, so to speak.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's actually a good pivot point in the conversation, right? So when we think of the idea of motivation, and I think you and I've talked about this before, I tend to say that motivation is very fleeting. Sometimes I get a little cheeky and I say motivation doesn't exist, because it's been my experience as someone who works really hard, who does a lot of things, who has a lot of spinning plates, I very rarely feel motivated to do any one particular task, specifically if they're like the boring hard ones, right? Like I could feel motivated to go have tacos with Lindsey. Yes, that would be motivating. But I
Oh
don't
man, I'm
necessarily
here for
feel
it.
I
I'm here
don't
for it.
necessarily feel motivated, to sit down and align projects and get dates fixed and, update spreadsheets and whatever, right? If I'm using thinking about my day job, that work has to get done. And what it boils down to in my experience is leaning into dedication, leaning into determination, leaning
Mhm.
into
And
understanding
consistency.
why, and consistency, building that into your daily life rather than relying on some spark of motivation to just like manifest in your life.
Right. But then kind of tying this back into what we discussed with ADHD and the role of ADHD in our lives. And again, I know that it presents very differently for different people and it can, coincide with other things that are going on or whatever. But um, ADHD is it's a space of neurodivergence where it is something that affects our dopamine system, which is our pleasure principle, our
Mm.
motivation center.
Yep.
And so it can be really hard to get motivated for things that even whenever you're supposed to do the thing or it has this outcome, if it's too long term of an outcome, it's like forget about it. I just can't get motivated, which is why we tie it back to the SMART goals. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you've got like those long-term goals of, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds, or oh, I want to make, all straight A's or six-figure income in like this many years, that's not really that helpful because then you're
No.
looking so far along. It's like, okay, but how are you going to get there? And you really got to like break it up into achievable tasks or, areas of performance that you can get to in order to move to that space. So, it does take time, which kind of is why I was talking about high self-efficacy is not always a good
Yeah.
thing.
Let's go
Um,
ahead and dive into that because you got my interest peaked. I want to know. So
yeah,
tell me, give me an example.
yeah. Well, okay. So I would say that with all things, and I know I mention this a lot, I believe all things exist on a spectrum.
Yep.
Everything in life is about balance, and our self-efficacy is no different. So when there's too low of self-efficacy, you're feeling like really down on yourself. You just have that inherent sense of like, I'm a failure, low self-worth. You just can't do it. So why should I try? And it's like really blah. But then on
Mm-hmm.
the other end of the spectrum, with too high of self efficacy, you're looking at someone who has extremely high, and if not beyond high, but over self confidence, over self inflation of their belief in their ability to do something. You do not want to see that with, like, say, a medical professional, someone
Oh,
who
yeah.
believes
Mm-hmm.
too much in their abilities to do certain things when in
Yeah.
fact they do not have the skill set or the education to support it. It could be
I was thinking
that
about an airline pilot or
Oh,
like,
I mean, by all
I
means. Yeah,
mean,
you don't know how to
like,
land in that kind of terrain? Let's not have you test us
let's
and find
try
out.
it. Let's test a theory. Let's not. There's some areas of life where it is okay to test theories. There are other areas of life where it is not recommended.
Yeah. So, I mean, and even if, say, you have very high self-efficacy to the extent where you have such grandiose thought
Mm.
of your belief and your perception of competence that you willfully choose to underperform because you know that you already know everything.
Ooh. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Yeah.
you wouldn't want that either. Where again, if
Mm.
you think about some of these professions, whether it's a mental health space, medical space, airline, some things where
Yeah.
people's lives are at hand, or it could be your Uber driver. You don't want someone to be feeling so confident, so overly confident in their ability to navigate, city
Yeah.
traffic at 60 miles per hour in
No,
tight
thank you.
spaces to be
Listen,
so
if
that
you
they
are
feel like they
really
can be risky.
yes, I agree with you. If you are so confident in your cooking skills that you want to invite me over to try a new recipe, I am here for it. If you are so confident in your driving skills that you want to drive me around New York like 70 miles per hour, I've never been to New York. I don't know what the driving situation there is like. I imagine it's a little bit hectic.
I'd like you to know that I've
let's
driven
not do
in
that.
New York. It was about as exciting as Los Angeles and Boston.
Ooh, listen. Nope, no thank
Oh,
you.
man.
But also,
Yeah,
so
people
as
are
you were
crazy.
talking, I pictured a different scenario that I think is super relevant.
Okay.
I imagine that a person with self-efficacy that trends toward the too much realm would be someone that is very uncomfortable or unwilling to listen to negative feedback or constructive criticism, or like, this is the person that in a conversation, when something is misinterpreted and you try to walk through it, they're just walking away. Like, nope, sorry, you got that wrong. I didn't say that, or I didn't do that.
Right.
And
It's
that
like
can make things really challenging.
Yeah, not too much of a team player. And it's not to make like sweeping generalizations that all people are like this who have really high self-efficacy, but you can certainly see where a personality type like that, they probably would not be very fun to have as like a team member, because they might know everything, or they might not feel that there's any necessity for a team because they have all the skills that are needed in their own head and they are their number one fan. So who needs a team of other medical professionals to help, or who needs a team of other basketball players whenever I can hoard the ball and do all the shots myself? It's just not a great team mindset in some respects, but you can see where it could create some nasty downward spirals on the other end. So maybe it's not depression, but maybe it shows up as like, narcissism.
Oh, keyword. Yeah, I can see how that would be challenging. And I like your picture or your description of it being on a spectrum, right? Because I think, and we've said this before, we're going to continue saying it until it actually sinks in, that the idea of and, the power of and, not being this or that, not being, polar opposites, but finding and striking a balance in your life where you have that confidence, where you have that self-efficacy to say, yes, I am smart. I can do hard things. I can tackle this next thing, and here's how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And just finding where that makes sense for you.
That's right. That's right. And so truly, to kind of tie this up in a nice pretty bow, I would like to say for any listeners out there who are kind of battling their own sense of self-efficacy and figuring out where they are on that spectrum, if you are someone who is in need of some support whenever it comes to getting your health on track, your fitness on track, your mindset on track, trying to achieve certain kind of career goals, or getting your life back in a space where you can actually experience things that bring you joy, reestablish hobbies, interest, and rediscover your passions. We hope that you reach out to myself or Amber for support, because we are here to help you in whatever way that we can. And you can check us out at conscioushealers.com for more information, because we are here to support you. And we do understand that this journey is not easy, and it does not happen in a vacuum. We need community support, and that's why we are here.
Absolutely. And that's a good reminder. It's a good way to put a cap on it today. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation with you, per usual. No surprise there. And want to encourage folks to please, if you love this episode, if you are enjoying our content, first and foremost, please give us a 5-star review, because it helps to push our information out to more people. Second, we would ask you to share it with a friend or family member, or like your neighbor down the street, whoever it is, right? Get the information out there so that we can reach more people with our messages, and we can help to shift the tides of what society has sort of normalized, right?
Yeah.
When in the negative space, we want to spread more positivity, more grace, more knowledge, and more empowerment. So the way we do that is through you guys.
Yes. Thank you so much. Well said, Amber. All right, guys and dolls, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of What the Fox podcast. So until next Tuesday, we will talk to you then.
Bye, y'all. See you next Tuesday.
And we all sing, everything is gonna be just fine. It's gonna fall into place. The sun is gonna set on your terrible day.